Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. I'd love it if you could leave a comment letting me know where you're listening from around the world. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this video. Story 1. I grew up in a small town near Shiprock, New Mexico, the kind of place where nights were so quiet you could hear your own heartbeat if you stood still long enough. My brother, Nate, and I used to fill that silence by going night fishing at a small lake about 15 minutes from home. It was our thing. No phones, no music, no noise, just two brothers in the black, breathing water. That night, late October, the air had that strange edge it gets before winter really sets in. Sharp enough to sting your lungs, but not enough to make you head home. The stars were scattered thick across the sky, and the moon hung low, yellow as old paper. Everything around us felt still, dead still. Even the wind had stopped moving through the cottonwoods. We'd been out for hours without much luck. My flashlight sat beside me on the rock, catching the occasional glint off the lake surface. Nate was sitting a few feet away, reeling in his lines slow and steady, the soft were the reel, the only sound breaking the quiet. Then, out of nowhere, he stopped. "You hear that?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. I didn't, not at first, but then I caught it, faint and broken, coming from somewhere behind us. It was like someone trying to speak through dry leaves. "Ben." My stomach tightened. It was saying my name. "Ben, come here." I turned to Nate, waiting for him to grin, to tell me it was a joke. But he wasn't grinning. He was staring at the tree line, face pale in the moonlight. "I didn't say that," he whispered. For a second, I thought he was still messing with me, but the look in his eyes told me he wasn't. His pupils were wide, his jaw locked tight. That's when I felt it, that heavy silence pressing down harder, the kind that makes your heartbeat sound too loud in your ears. I stood up trying to laugh it off, but my legs didn't feel steady. "Probably someone camping nearby," I said, forcing my voice to sound normal. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. It had sounded too close. We started packing up fast, hands shaking as we stuffed bait and tackle into the box. Then the voice came again, this time louder, clearer. "Ben, come here. I found something." My blood turned cold. It was his voice, Nate's voice. Every inflection, every rhythm, down to the tiny rasp he got when he was tired. Only Nate was standing right next to me, staring into the trees. He dropped the tackle box, and the sound of it hitting the ground echoed across the lake like a gunshot. Neither of us moved for a long second. Then Nate hissed, "Don't look back. Just go." We started walking fast toward the truck, flashlights bobbing in our shaking hands. The gravel crunched under our boots, loud, too loud, and behind us something moved. Slow, dragging steps that weren't trying to hide. When we reached the truck, I felt a pulse of relief. But that's when I saw it. Crouched by the rear tire was something that looked almost human. Its skin was pale like wet clay, stretched tight over long, bony arms. It didn't have any clothes, just dirt and dried leaves sticking to its body like it had crawled out of the ground. It turned its head toward us. The motion wasn't right, too fast, too jerky, like it didn't understand how necks were supposed to work. And then it smiled. But the smile didn't move its face properly. The skin on its cheeks stayed still while the mouth pulled too wide, revealing teeth that looked too many and too sharp. I froze. Nate didn't. He grabbed my arm. yanked me toward the door, and we both dove inside. My hands fumbled on the keys, shaking so bad I almost dropped them. The moment the engine roared to life, the thing moved, scuttled, really backward into the trees, faster than any person could move. We peeled out of there, gravel flying behind the tires. The headlights caught something pale darting between the trees for a split second before it vanished completely. Nate didn't speak the entire drive home. He stared out the window, jaw clenched, breathing heavy. I didn't say anything either. I didn't have words. When we finally got home, Mom was waiting up. She always did. She took one look at us and frowned. "What happened?" she asked. I told her what we saw, or what we thought we saw. How something out there sounded just like Nate. How it called my name. Mom went still, then whispered something under her breath in Navajo before crossing herself. She looked right at me and said, "You don't go back there after dark. You don't call it by name. And you don't listen when it calls you." Her voice shook a little on that last part. We never talked about it again. But sometimes, when the wind gets still like it did that night, I can't help but think about that thing's face. How human it almost looked, how wrong that smile was. It's been years since that night. Nate moved away, started a family, doesn't fish anymore. I still live here, but I don't go near that lake. Not even during the day. Because every now and then, when the world goes quiet and the trees stop moving, I swear I can still hear it. That same rasping voice, faint and patient, calling from somewhere deep in the woods. "Ben, come here. I found something, and I know if I ever answer it, I won't be the one who comes back." Story 2. I used to work nights as a security guard at a half-built shopping complex just outside Winslow, Arizona. It was a lonely job, 12 hours of silence broken only by the wind or the occasional coyote yipping somewhere in the dark. I didn't mind. After a messy divorce, the quiet felt like a blessing. I'd sit in the little trailer they gave me, a rusting metal box with peeling paint, drinking cheap coffee from my thermos and listening to the hum of the fluorescent light above my head. Most nights were uneventful. I'd walk the perimeter, check the locks, make sure no one was stealing copper wiring or graffitiing the walls. But one night in late November, things changed. It was around 2 a.m. The desert air was cold enough that my breath came out in short white clouds. I was sitting at a small desk, half dozing, when I heard it, footsteps. At first, I thought I imagined it. A light patter, right above me, followed by the faint creak of metal. I frowned and set my coffee down. The trailer roof wasn't made to hold much weight. It would groan even when I leaned a ladder against it. But this sounded heavier, deliberate. I stepped outside, flashlight in hand. The air was so still that even the tumbleweeds seemed frozen mid-roll. I pointed the light up. Nothing. The roof looked empty, the edges sharp and silver in the moonlight. Probably a raccoon, I muttered, even though I'd never seen one out there. I walked a slow circle around the trailer, shining the light upward. No movement, no sound, just the whisper of the wind brushing against the chain-link fence that surrounded the site. I was halfway back to the door when something slammed against the roof above me. The sound was deafening. The whole trailer rattled, and for a moment, I thought the roof might cave in. I froze where I stood, heart hammering in my chest. Then came another sound, a slow, dragging scrape that crawled from one end of the roof to the other, like claws raking across metal. Every instinct I'd screamed run, but my feet wouldn't move. I lifted the flashlight again, and that's when I saw it. It moved along the roof line, fast, low to the ground, its limbs bending wrong. The beam of my light caught its face for half a second, and that half second is burned into my brain forever. It looked human, but stretched like someone had pulled its skin too tight over its bones. The mouth was too wide, and the eyes reflected the light the way a cat's do, glowing pale yellow. It hissed, a wet, animal sound that vibrated through the metal. Then it crawled out of sight. I ran inside, slammed the door, and locked it. My hand was shaking so bad I dropped my flashlight. For a long moment, there was silence. I thought maybe it was gone. Then came the tapping. Tap, tap, tap on the window behind me. I turned slowly, the blood draining from my face. Through the grimy glass, something pale moved. And then I heard it, my own voice whispering, "Let me in." I froze. It wasn't a recording. It wasn't an echo. It was me. Same tone, same rhythm, whispering right outside the window. Then it came again, from the other side of the trailer this time. "Come out here. It's okay. It's just me." I backed into the corner, my flashlight trembling in my grip. It kept circling the trailer, tapping on each window, whispering over and over, sometimes in my voice, sometimes in voices I didn't recognize. One sounded like a woman crying, another like a child laughing. At one point, I heard claws scrape the door, dragging down slow and deliberate. Then the roof creaked again, whatever it was had climbed back up. For the next 20 minutes, I sat in the dark, barely breathing, while that thing circled, whispered, scratched, and tapped. Every sound felt closer, like it was trying to learn how to talk like me. At some point, the whispers stopped. The silence was worse. I waited, counting the seconds, then minutes. The first pale light of dawn started bleeding through the cracks of the blinds. That's when I heard it. One last sound. A low growl, deep and wet, that slowly turned into laughter. Not a human laugh. Something broken, off-key like someone imitating it, but not quite getting it right. Then it was gone. When the sun was fully up, I finally stepped outside. My boots felt like they weighed 100 pounds. I walked around the trailer, heart thudding in my ears. That's when I saw the handprints on the roof. There were at least 6 of them, smeared in gray, like ash. Each one was the size of a dinner plate, with long, thin fingers that ended in points. Not claws exactly, but sharp enough to gouge the metal. I stood there for a long time, staring at those prints, until my radio crackled with my supervisor's voice asking if everything was fine. I told him I was done. I quit right then, packed up my thermos and flashlight, and drove off without looking back. When I turned in the keys, the supervisor laughed, said it was probably coyotes. Coyotes, he said, sometimes sound like people when they yip. I didn't argue. I just smiled, handed him my badge, and left. But I've heard coyotes all my life. Coyotes don't laugh in your voice, and they sure as hell don't leave handprints on metal roofs. Story 3. I was visiting my cousin Eli on a reservation in Utah that summer. The kind of land that looks endless, where the horizon swallows the sun whole and the wind carries secrets. Eli and I hadn't seen each other in years, and that night We decided to drive out into the desert, just to talk, just to feel the night around us. The road was dirt, the kind that hums under the tires, and the only light came from the truck's high beams. The sky above us was so heavy with stars it looked like it could fall. There was no sound except the engine's soft idle and the whisper of wind through the sagebrush. It was peaceful until it wasn't. Around 2 in the morning, something darted across the road ahead of us. It moved fast, too fast, and for a split second, it caught the beam of the headlights. I thought it was a deer, big, thin, graceful. But when it stopped and turned toward us, my heart stumbled in my chest. It wasn't right. Its eyes, they weren't animal eyes. They were too big, too round. The pupils dilated like a human's. And it looked directly at me, not past me, not the way an animal looks at headlights, but into me. Its mouth hung open. I could see the dark shape of its tongue, the pale teeth glinting. But no sound came out, not at first. Then it screamed. It wasn't a noise that belonged to this world. It was a mix of a woman sobbing and a man shouting in pain. High and low at once, broken, layered, like it came from more than one throat. I felt it vibrate in my ribs. My cousin Eli shouted something in Navajo, something sharp and fearful. His voice cracked. "Turn your eyes away," he yelled, but I couldn't. The thing twitched, then its body began to move in a way that made no sense. Its neck turned too far, its front legs bending backward at the knees with a wet, snapping sound. It stood up, slowly. The joints cracked like tree branches in a storm, and the skin along its neck stretched until I thought it would tear. Now it was standing upright, its long arms hanging where forelegs should have been, hooves melting into hands. It swayed side to side like it was testing its balance. And all the while, it stared at me with those impossible eyes. I felt something in my chest. Not just fear, something older. A kind of dread that crawled down into my bones. Eli jammed the truck into reverse and floored it. Gravel spit up behind us as we tore backward, the headlights flashing across the thing's face. It looked almost human now, but wrong. The mouth too wide, the teeth too many. It let out another scream that didn't sound angry, but hungry. The truck fishtailed and nearly hit a fence post. I could hear its hooves pounding after us, fast, impossibly fast. Each step seemed to shake the ground. I turned and saw it running on all fours again, its limbs bending the wrong way, the scream echoing off the valley walls. "Don't look at it," Eli shouted again. "Don't let it see your eyes." But it was too late. It already had. We made it back to his grandmother's house, slammed the doors, and locked everything. Eli was shaking. His hands, his voice, everything. He went straight to his grandmother's room. She was already awake, sitting up with a bowl of sage smoldering beside her. She didn't ask what happened. She just looked at us, looked through us, and said, "You saw one of them." Her voice was low, almost a whisper, "And it saw you too." She waved the smoke around us, murmuring words I didn't understand. The room smelled sharp and earthy. "Don't go out there again," she said. "Not alone. Not at night. It knows you now." I didn't sleep that night. Neither did Eli. We sat in the living room with all the lights on, listening. Every creak of the wood, every gust of wind felt wrong, heavy, intentional. By morning, I told myself it had to be something else. Maybe a trick of the light. Maybe a coyote mangled by some disease. My mind clawed for logic. But when I walked outside, the ground near the truck was covered in prints. Not quite hooves, not quite hands. Long, uneven, deep in the soil, circling the vehicle like something had paced around it for hours. When we drove into town that afternoon, Eli wouldn't take the same road. He took the long way, quiet the whole ride. I didn't argue. For the rest of my stay, I couldn't shake it. Every night, I lay in bed and swore I heard something outside. Not footsteps, but hooves. Slow, steady, circling the window. The first few nights I tried to convince myself it was my imagination. But on the fourth night, I heard it breathe. Long, rasping, like air through broken glass. Then a soft voice, my voice, whispering my own name. That's when I packed up and left. I don't go back there anymore. Not to Utah, not to the desert. And I don't drive dirt roads at night. Sometimes, though, when I'm on a quiet highway and the stars are out, I'll catch something in the corner of my eye. Something that looks like a deer standing just beyond the lights. And every instinct in me says don't look. But sometimes I still do. And I swear it's smiling.